Hey everyone, welcome to this week's service. We appreciate you guys checking it out here on YouTube. I'm Tracy Pfeiffer, and we hope you experience God through this video and through this service. We invite you, if you're in the area, to come check us out at 906 or 1026 every week in person, or you can check us out even live on Facebook, the Encounter page on Facebook at 1026. Again, we hope you just experience God through this. Thanks.
This morning, here at the Encounter, we believe that God deserves everything we've got. Our hands, our hearts, our mouths, our minds. So we would love for you guys to stand up and worship with us.
There's one thing I'm asking, one thing I'm needing, a moment that's passing. It's now what I'm needing. Like it's the air I'm breathing. I want your presence, feet on the earth, heart full of heaven. Seal for you completely consumes me. I can't get enough of you. Your fire burning right through me. I can't get enough of you. Oh, oh. You, oh, oh. Can't get enough of you. Oh, oh. You, oh, oh. Can't get enough of you. I'm after your spirit more than a feeling. I don't need a reason to keep chasing who you are. I can see the air I'm breathing. I want your presence, feet on the earth, heart full of heaven. Seal for you completely consumes me. I can't get enough of you. Your fire burning right through me. I can't get enough of you. Oh, oh. You, oh, oh. Can't get enough of you. Oh, oh. You, oh, oh. Can't get enough of you. Every beat is yours, you can have it all. Take over like only you can. I'm reaching for you and nothing more. Take over like only you can. I'm reaching for you and nothing more. Take over like only you can. I'm reaching for you and nothing more. Take over like only you can. Completely consumes me. I can't get enough of you. Your fire burning right through me. I can't get enough of you. Oh, oh. You, oh, oh. Can't get enough of you. Oh, oh. You, oh, oh. Can't get enough of you. I've got river, living water, fountain, never will run dry. It's an open heaven, you're releasing. We will never be denied. 'Cause we're stirring up deep, deep wells, stirring up deep, deep waters. We're gonna dance in the river, dance in the river. Stirring up deep, deep wells. deep, deep waters. We're gonna jump in the river. Jump in the river. Deep cries out to, deep cries out to, deep cries out to, deep cries out to, deep cry out to, we cry out to you, Jesus. I've got river, living water, fountain, never will run dry. It's an open heaven, you're releasing. We will never be denied. 'Cause it's stirring up deep, deep wells, stirring up deep, deep waters. We're gonna dance in the river, dance in the river. 'Cause we're stirring up deep, deep wells, stirring up deep, deep waters. We're gonna jump in the river, jump in the river. Deep cries out to, deep cries out to, deep cries out to, deep cries out to. We cry out to, we cry out to you, Jesus. Deep cries out to, deep cries out to, deep cries out to, deep cries out to. We cry out to, we cry out to you, Jesus. Falling into deep waters, calling out to you. Walking into deep waters, going after you. If we go to the left, then we go to the left. If we go to the right, then we go to the right. We're gonna jump, 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 jump in the river. Jump, 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 everybody. If he goes to the left, then we'll go to the left. And if he goes to the right, then we'll go to the right. We're gonna dance, 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 dance in the river. Dance, 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 everybody. If he goes to the left, then we'll go to the left. If he goes to the right, then we'll go to the right. We're gonna shout, 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 shout in the river. Shout, 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 everybody. If he goes to the left, then we'll go to the left. If he goes to the right, then we'll go to the right. We're gonna shout, 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 shout in the river. Shout, 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 yeah.
Welcome to the encounter. Welcome to the live stream. Yeah. Again, I lost a couple pounds, I think, just watching those guys over there. So that's my favorite way to exercise, is to watch someone else do it. We're on the last week of Guardrails, and I'm sure some of us are like, whew, Thank God I am done talking about guardrails. Because it's uncomfortable sometimes in those areas of our lives where we have to reel it back in and go, what am I really doing here? And I got to tell you, I've had a little bit of a rough week this week. Me and God had to have some conversations about my attitude. I had to wear shoes, and so not super thrilled about that. I'm wearing shoes today and not loving it. But it got colder this week, and I was going, oh, really? This is what we're doing now? And I had to adjust my attitude. I had to check my attitude and go, okay, am I really going to let the weather do this? So it's a guardrail. It's an area of my life that some of you guys may not have to deal with this, but it's an area of my life where I got to really watch my attitude when the weather turns cold or my attitude turns very cold. And I don't like people or places or things when the weather gets cold. But we've said for this series that we all know what a guardrail is, but we changed the definition to a personal standard of behavior that becomes a matter of conscience. In other words, you put things in your life that when you bump up against that situation, you go, oh, wait, I got to get back into the middle of the road before I end up in the danger zone. We've looked at money. We looked at friendships. We looked at relationships that were more than friends, more intimate kind of relationships. We looked at the next generation. This week we're going to kind of do a wrap-up, and we're going to talk about some different areas as well. But I want you to take just 30 seconds and turn to someone next to you and talk about what's the area that's been best for you. Like, if this was the area that kind of either was the hardest for me, like I really need this guardrail in my life, or the one that really kind of spoke to you, or you can be honest and be like, hey, I didn't like any of this, or maybe I wasn't here for most of it, whatever. But turn to someone next to you and kind of give them that. What's been the one that's kind of spoke to you the most as we've talked about guardrails? Go. If you're online, you can type it. You don't have to, but you can. You guys can have that conversation online. That'd be kind of fun. All right. Sounds like some people got something out of it, which is good. I will tell you the hardest one for me that we've talked about has been money. And I hate talking about money, and it seems like every time I do that in my life, I have no idea what that was. Every time I do that in my life, I realize how loose I've gotten with some of the guardrails. Like, I will look at things and go, we spend how much on that a month? Or, I thought, where'd this other $100 we had? Where did that go? Like, and you just kind of blow it on stuff, and you're not careful, and you're like, I have no account of this money. I know I made it. Like, I remember working those hours, but I have no idea what I actually spent the money on. And so for me, that's always the toughest one is the money thing, and getting a handle on it and making sure I know where my money is going is the hard part for me with that one. But this week, we're going to look at what are the areas, because we've only talked about 5. And there are other areas in our lives that we're not going to talk about on a Sunday morning that need guardrails. It's not just like we thought, oh, you hit the 5 areas of your life, now you're done. The rest of your life can be whatever, and as long as you have guardrails in these areas, you're good to go. And so we're going to talk about some different areas that I need guardrails, and then we're going to give you a chance to spend some time going, what are the areas in my life where I need a guardrail?
Good morning again, friends. Thank you. My name is Mandy. I am married to that darling human there. I volunteer with worship band and with youth ministry. We are so excited that y'all are here today. If you are a guest with us, just some things you might need to know before we break for coffee here in a minute. If you didn't stop at the welcome desk on your way in, I would love for you to take a minute and go out and see Miss Kim out there during coffee break. She's got a gift for you. She can answer any questions you might have about where things are or what to do here at the Encounter. She can also give you a little card that explains YouVersion, which is an app that we use during the message. You can follow along on that app with Trace's sermon notes. You can always also get a paper copy of those notes out at the Welcome Center, so that's out there to grab it. if you are on your phones, we know you're on your phones. If you're on your phones during the service, we would love for you to check in on Facebook. Just say hey, tell your friends and family where you are. It's a great way to start a conversation just about what Jesus has done for you and maybe what the Encounter community could do for them as well, and we would love that. If you need to know where the bathrooms are, if you go out these back doors, ladies, you take 2 rights, and in the children's wing over there is the women's bathroom. Men, you can take 2 lefts out the back door, and there's also a family or a handicap accessible bathroom out there to the left. And then also you'll notice when Trace is talking, there is a phone number at the bottom of the screen, and that is his personal cell phone number. You can text him with any questions or comments you might have. Some snarky teenagers usually message him as well during the message, and he would love to hear from you. He will answer those if he can. Yeah, it's usually my son. But anyway, we're going to take a coffee break.
Oh, I've heard 1,000 stories of what they think you're like, but I've heard the tender whisper of love in the dead of night, and you tell me that you're pleased and that I'm never alone. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are. And I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. Oh, I've seen many searching for answers far and wide, but I know we're all searching for answers only you provide, 'cause you know just what we need before we say a word. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are, and I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways to us. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways to us. Oh, it's love so undeniable. I can hardly speak. Peace so unexplainable. I can hardly think as you call me. Deeper still as you call me. Deeper still as you call me. Deeper still into love, 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 love. You're good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are, and I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. You're good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are, and I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways to us.
God, may we not forget who you are. And because of who you are, who we are, God, I pray that we would not chase things of the world, but we would rest and be satisfied in the fact that we are your child. In your name, amen. All right, so guardrails. I feel like I've tried to be clear at least about guardrails and the fact that there's a reason we put guardrails in our lives. And so I went to a church as a kid, and they had a lot of rules about what you didn't do. Mostly it was what you didn't do. I guess there was some you could do, but it was mostly stuff you didn't do. But they didn't really have an answer as to why you didn't do those things, other than it's what we've always done. Like, you just don't do those things. That was like the answer as to why, because you don't. When we're doing guardrails in our lives, the reason we put guardrails in our lives comes from Proverbs 4:23. Guard your heart above all else, for it is the source of life. Above all else, put guardrails in your life to guard your heart. The Message says it this way: keep vigilant watch over your heart. There's a comedian, John Crist, who has a shirt that says, check your heart. And that's what Proverbs is saying. Keep watch. Keep an eye on your heart. Why? Because it's the source of life. Everything flows out of it. Jesus said, from the heart, the mouth speaks. And so we have to be careful as to what our heart is. And he talks about giving us a new heart. In Ezekiel 36, it talks about God giving us a new heart. But here's the issue with that, or the setback, so to speak. God gives us a new heart, but he doesn't destroy the old heart. So I can easily turn back and pick up the old heart and begin to follow it again. Even though I've been given this new heart that's way, way better, I can turn around and begin to ask the old heart what it thinks. And Jeremiah 17 says the old heart is deceitful, and we can't trust it. But we turn back to it, and we start walking in what the church calls the old man, or the old self, before you knew Jesus. And the problem with that guy is he's not good. David in Psalm 51 asked God to create in him a pure heart, because his heart was not pure without Jesus, or without God at that point. And we put guardrails in our lives to keep our heart in check. Because if I don't personally keep my heart in check, I fall back into the old man, into the old ways. If I'm not constantly looking at, if I'm not vigilantly looking at my life, I fall back into the old man. And the old man looks out for number one. I had a friend who had a saying that he said, I'll get mine. And so he always made sure he got his, whatever it was. Then once he got his, then he was more than willing to look out for other people and to help other people. But he became number one in his life. And so he always got his. He always looked out for number one. The other problem with the old heart, that when we pick it back up, we become much more concerned about our comfort and the things that make us feel good temporarily than we are about our character or who we're becoming, whether that's good or bad. Because as we begin to walk in the old man, we start to walk out of new habits. And that man is not good, but we begin to follow that. And so we have to constantly keep that in check. And that's what guardrails do for us. Romans 12:2 says, do not be conformed any longer to the patterns of this world. In other words, do not follow the patterns of the world. Because we talked about early on, the world gives you guardrails like drink responsibly, which is not even measurable. And when you don't drink responsibly, wherever that line is at, they mock you for it, and they make fun of you. And you end up in, if you're a celebrity, you end up in papers and magazines and in internet articles with these pictures of you, and you're like, oh, that's not pretty. But they don't give you good guardrails, and that's the pattern of the world. But it says, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, perfect will. And we do that by getting into the Word and by understanding what God says about who we were before we met him and who we can be after we met him. And we do that by lining ourselves up and getting guardrails in our lives. But putting guardrails in our lives takes being honest about who we are. And I'm going to be honest with you right now that the church has more masks than Halloween. We come in and we put on facades and we go, oh, I'm good, I'm doing great, everything's wonderful, when it's not. We don't feel like we can be honest with each other, and a lot of times we're not honest with ourselves about who we are and where we're at. And so we put guardrails in places that don't matter or we don't really need, because we don't struggle in that area anyways. See, when I did some music stuff, there were drugs in the area. Like there were people, I knew people who did drugs and had drugs. And I was never tempted with that. I never put a guardrail in my life for drugs. I was never tempted by it. I didn't need that guardrail. Some people did, but I did not. So I had to be honest and know myself enough to go, I don't really need a guardrail there. I'm not tempted by that. And one guy that I traveled with, that women was his big downfall. Like he would go back with any girl who came up to him after the show, and I'm going, you don't know this woman. Like she might come up to every guy who plays here. But he was more than willing to go home with her. That was never a temptation for me. I never had to put a guardrail like that in my life because I wasn't tempted by it. I was never going to go home with someone else. But I do struggle with pride, and I have to keep that in check. And so one of the guardrails that I have in my life when I'm doing something, I do everything I can to do it in a team. I want a team doing it. I want us to succeed together so that when it does succeed, it's not just me going, oh, look at how good I did here. But we can all go, look, we did this together. The other thing about the team is they keep me in check. I have people who are allowed to call me out on my attitude and who I've given permission to go, look, if you see this in my life, smack me. Do not let me go further in this. And there are people who, sadly, I know will smack me if, like, literally smack me if I get there. So that's a little scary. But I do have that, and I have that guardrail in place. I had to get off Reverb.com, which I know most of you guys probably don't even know what Reverb.com is. It's an app that you can have on your phone. It's a website where you can buy and sell music gear, guitars, amps, pedals. And I would end up down rabbit trails, wanting things I had no need for, no real, like, I could never use this. But now I want it, and I'm trying to sell stuff to save that $400 to get it. And I'm thinking about it, and I'm spending time and energy trying to figure out how I could get it or what I could possibly use it for. Can I make this work in the context I'm in? And so I just said, you know what? I'm just going to get it off my phone. Because every time I open it, I end up down a rabbit trail. And I'm not going to do that. And so I had to take it off my phone. If you are a natural or rule follower, raise your hand. Okay? If you're a natural rule follower, raise your hand. See, we know who those people are because they just raised their hand, right? So those of us who didn't raise our hand, if I asked you to raise your hand, you'd be going, why? Like, give me a reason. I got to have I'm just raising my hand because you asked me. What's the reason? I am not naturally a rule follower. And so I have to keep that in check because I have to constantly ask myself, am I not following this just because I don't like following rules? Or is there like a legit reason that I don't want to do this? And so it's a guardrail I've had to put in my life. I've had to step back in areas of my life and go, what's the reason I'm not doing this? But my wife, she's a rule follower. She doesn't have to have that guardrail in her life because if the law or the rule says do this, she's just going to do it. I have to have that guardrail in my life because otherwise I'm going, I'm not doing that, and I'm way over here. I'm doing the exact opposite just because I feel like I can, And so I have to have that guardrail that keeps me over here so that I'm not over here doing, I'm not over here touching the fence, holding water while I'm not supposed to be, And so what are the areas in our lives that we need guardrails? There are going to be areas that you need them that I don't. And I will tell you this about guardrails. They do not eliminate the tension in our lives. Excuse me. Guardrails do not eliminate the tension. What they do is they put the tension in a safer place. So if there's something that you're struggling with, while you're trying to figure it out, the guardrail keeps you in a place where as you're figuring it out, you're not building up all these consequences that you're going to have to deal with. And you're not derailing your life in the middle of trying to figure out why you're struggling with this. And so you put these guardrails in your life so that you stay in the middle, in the safety zone. And you have a safe place to figure out why you're struggling with it or what it is about it that isn't working out in your life. Otherwise, you end up like Wile E. Coyote out here trying to figure it out, and all of a sudden you look down, and now gravity takes over, and you're heading towards the bottom trying to figure out, well, why did I do this? If you have a guardrail, it keeps you on land, and you can now figure out what the issue is while you're doing that. There's also this thing called the law of diminishing returns. I don't know how many of you guys have heard of that, but basically what it is every time you do something, it has less and less effect on you. So people who take drugs don't ever stay at one level. They eventually move to something more of it, harder, whatever, because that law of diminishing returns. Food can be like that. You can start out with something, and then the next time you want a bigger one, and then a bigger piece. And then we end up with America, where our portions are 4 times the size of any other country in the world, right? Because it's the law of diminishing returns. I bought my first guitar, and it lasted me like 2.5, 3 years. Loved it. One of the last guitars I bought lasted me about 3 months. Went, I'm kind of done with this. I need something else now. Went from 2.5 years to 3 months. The law of diminishing returns. You can't escape it. Every time you do something, it's going to give you less fulfillment. And so you want more. You need more, bigger. And our natural tendency is to compromise and go, well, I'll just give in a little bit here. I'll just give in a little bit here. I still have control of it. I'm just going to give in a little bit here. But the problem with that spot where you give in is not stationary. That spot moves. Now I'm going to give in this much. And now I'm going to give in this much. And we think we're still strong because we're deciding where that line is. But it's actually weakness. And we're becoming weaker as we compromise more and more in our lives. That's our natural tendency, is to begin to do that. So there's a story of Daniel. And he's in Daniel's chapter 1. Him and his friends are they're captured. They're put into the king's prison. And they're going to serve the new king who's now occupying their land. And they've been told, because they're going to be in the king's service, that they can have the choicest food. They can have steak, whatever it is, the king's choicest stuff, the finest stuff the king has. They get the king's wine, all of these things. See, Daniel and his friends had made this vow. They were only going to do vegetables and water. And Daniel said, I am not going to compromise. And so he did the vegetable water thing for months. And here's the crazy thing. They had all this choice food, all the best of everything that the king could provide. At the end of those months, Daniel looked better than those other guys. He was healthier, he was stronger, he was wiser, because he had a guardrail. He said, I do not cross this zone. I stay here in the middle where I have told God I'm going to be. And God showed up. Compromise becomes easier every time you do it. I've never compromised the second time. Well, that was harder than the first time. It's never happened for me. It's always easier as you do it, and it gets easier and easier. Proverbs 4:23, guard your heart above all else, because it is the source of life. See, now you have to decide where those guardrails need to be. That's between you and Jesus and the Holy Spirit, and going, what are the things that I really legitimately struggle with? If you have never been tempted to take drugs in your life, building guardrails in that area of your life is kind of pointless. If you struggle with TV and you have like a TV addiction, you watch TV 8 hours a day, that's an area you're going to need a guardrail in your life. You're going to have to go, you know what? This is X amount. When I'm done here, I'm done. Because I'm spending so much time being not productive doing this that it's wasting time in my life. And so you have to decide where that's at. But you have to be honest about who you are and where you're at in life. And again, as a church, as the church in America at least, we are not good at that. We're good at just putting up the guardrails that people see and talking about those and not getting down to the areas that we really need them in our lives. And I can't tell you where those guardrails are for you. I don't know you guys that well that I can go, hey, you need this, this, and this, and you don't need this. I know for me that there are areas of my life that I need guardrails that you probably don't. See, at 19, 18, 19, I decided I was going to give my life to Jesus. And I had gone to church off and on. I had done the church camp thing some, and I had some friends who went to youth group and that kind of thing. And it was just kind of stuff you went to every now and then. And at 19, I said, you know what? If you're a real God, I'm going to give you everything I have. And because of that decision, I have put guardrails in my life that are going to keep me on that path, that trajectory. So that decision sets up the guardrails for my time, sets up the guardrails for how I spend my money, it sets up guardrails for how I discipline my kids. The different areas in my life that need corrected are because I want to do everything I can to advance God's kingdom. And I've got to stay on that center path so I'm not out here wandering around. So one of my guardrails that I have right now, and I may not always need it, but right now I have a guardrail in my life where I don't just pick up my guitar and noodle around. I just don't pick it up and play right now because it will send me down a rabbit trail where I spend hours doing it, and now I'm thinking about writing music again and doing these different things, and those aren't bad things. But those aren't the focus that my life is supposed to be at right now. And so I have that guardrail in my life. And you're going, you may never need a guardrail like that. But right now in my life, I need that guardrail. I need to separate myself from that so I don't fall back into wanting that more than I want to see God's kingdom advanced. So we have to constantly examine if our guardrails are fulfilling their intended purpose. And if they're not, then we need to correct those. But here's the intended purposes of a guardrail. It should be guiding us towards Jesus. Any guardrail you should create should be pushing you straight towards Jesus. If your guardrail, if we're looking at the center aisle here, and that is heading to Jesus, my guardrails need to be here and here so that I'm on that straight path. If all of a sudden I stick a guardrail way over here, well, now I can start to veer that direction. And in a matter of weeks, I'm headed in such a wrong direction that it's going to take me another few weeks to get back to where I'm at. So my guardrail, for me, my guardrail has to point me straight to Jesus. It's got to create a straight path to Jesus. My guardrail has to guard my heart from itself. Jeremiah 17:9, the heart is deceitful. We pick that old man heart up, we can't trust it. We start going after comfort. And we can justify just about anything. I'm not going to ask you to tell somebody, but I'm betting right now you're going, oh yeah, I justified that in my life, and that was not a good decision. But I was able to justify it. And the last thing is guardrails need to be in the areas that they need to be in. Don't brag about your money guardrail if you don't even need a money guardrail in your life. And then let this area of your life that you're going, nobody knows about that anyways, I'm not going to put a guardrail there. And it takes you down. Put them where you need them. But again, that's you and God. That's you and God figuring that out. What are the areas, realistically, what are the areas in my life that are going to derail me as a person, spiritually? Even if we don't like those areas, we need to put guardrails in them. We only move guardrails if they're not keeping us out of the danger zone. That's the only reason you move a guardrail. If you're realizing it's not keeping you out of the danger zone. We don't move guardrails because they're inconvenient. Good. I'm glad it's inconvenient. It should be. That's telling you it's doing its job. But we want to move them because they're inconvenient. Like, I bumped up against it and it hurt a little bit. So I'm going to move it out some. And then it ends up way out here. And the next thing we know, we're in the danger zone. We got to fight our way back. So we only move it if it's not fulfilling its purpose. I want to be clear that we are not called to be perfect. Guardrails are not going to make us perfect. But I do believe we're called to be on the clock 24/7. We're called to constantly be looking at our lives and examining our hearts and going, where are the areas, God, that are not lining up with you? Where are the areas in my life that I'm not fully pursuing you and I'm chasing other things that are going to lead to death ultimately because they're not of you anyways. Those are the areas we need guardrails in our lives. So we're going to do one more song here. And the guardrails down here, you may have noticed there's some names on it. This is our last week to do this. If you have moved a guardrail in your life, like moved it in, or you've created a new guardrail in an area that you're going, I didn't have a guardrail before in this area, come up, sign it. Be part of that with us. We're going to try and find something to do with this thing so it's still here, visible, but obviously we're not going to leave it in the room like that. But we're going to find something to do with it. And so we'd love you to be part of that. There's a sheet over here that says praises. You can come up here and write down something you've seen God do in your life, seen a way that he's shown up. And over here there are prayer requests, a paper that says prayer requests. And you can just write down, God, I need you to show up in this way. We're going to have some people come forward. If you need someone to pray with you and you're going, I'm struggling with this. Because I'm sure you've heard me say this before if you've been here any time. Jesus did not walk through town and just randomly heal people. Jesus healed people who went, God, I need you. Show up. And as you do that, as you stand up and you walk towards Jesus, he's there to meet you. But he's not going to randomly heal people who don't want to be healed. And so if you'd stand, we're gonna do this last song. So we've got some people who are going to be up front here. And that's my challenge. This is your chance to find out where those guardrails need to be and to make those decisions.
The weapon may be formed, but it won't prosper. When the darkness falls, it won't prevail. 'Cause the God I serve knows only how to triumph. My God will never fail. No, my God will never fail. I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. There's power in the mighty name of Jesus. Every war he wages, he will win. Oh, I'm not backing down from any giant. I know how this story ends. Yes, I know how this story ends. I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. You take what the enemy meant for evil, and you turn it for good. You turn it for good. You take what the enemy meant for evil, and you turn it for good. You turn it for good. You take what the enemy meant for evil, and you turn it for good. You turn it for good.
at first service do this. I want us to close our eyes. And I'm not trying to create some emotional response where everybody comes forward, kneels down. That's not what I'm looking to do here. I want us to close our eyes for a sec. That song, and I don't know the guy who wrote it. I have no idea what he was thinking, but it reminds me of the story of a guy named Joseph. So Joseph was sold into slavery by his brothers. He then begins to work his way to the top of a house. And the guy who owns the house, his wife wants to sleep with Joseph, even though she's married to this other guy. And Joseph says, no, I'm not compromising who I am in Jesus. And so she accuses him of rape, and he goes to prison. And he spends years in prison. He ends up later in life becoming the second in command of all Egypt. And his brothers come before him, and he has a chance for retribution. He says, what the enemy meant for evil, God used for good. And 1 Peter talks about the fact that the devil is a roaring lion. He's looking for people to destroy, not to just have a little fun with, to destroy. And the things that you struggle with in your life, he's trying to use to make your life a living hell. That's what he's trying to do. But if we will set up guardrails in our lives, we can see the battle where God steps in and goes, no, I'm taking care of this. And it not only is good for you, but it becomes this major testimony of who Jesus is and what he can do for people who don't know who he is. So what I want you to do right now, and again, I'm not looking for this big emotional response where everyone comes forward, but I want you to sing this bridge and this chorus. And don't sing it just because it's got a good catch and a good hook and it's kind of fun. Think about the words you're singing. Declare those right now, that the enemy is not going to have victory in your life.
You take the enemy meant for evil and you turn it for good. You turn it for good. You take what the enemy meant for evil and you turn it for good. You turn it for good. You take what the enemy meant for evil and you turn it for good. You turn it for good. You take what the enemy meant for evil and you turn it for good. You turn it for good. 'Cause I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory.
That's right.
For the battle belongs to you, Lord. I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord.
I had someone say that guardrails don't only protect us, they protect those in our path, which is true. God can use those in your life to be such a testimony of who he is and the grace and the strength that he gives us. I'm going to have Liz come up. She's part of Ignite. Woohoo! Kids ministry.
So I just want to talk about what's going on this Saturday night. We are having our Trunk or Treat Fall Fest. There's going to be lots of different things going on. We're going to have the trunks. There's going to be a refuge contest for who has the best trunk. There may have been some talk going on between the groups already about who's going to win that.
There's a lot of smack talk going on. I'm not
There's
sure
a
how
lot.
I'm not sure how Jesus like it is, but there's a lot of smack talk going on. And I told first service that the winning refuge group is going to get a trophy, but I'm also going to throw in $50 so that you can, like, your next meal, like next week, you can use that to buy steak and grill out. You can buy pizza, whatever. But that'll be $50 that your group will also get if you win.
So along with that, we're also going to be having games. There's going to be a pizza truck, so come eat dinner, just have fun. We are still taking candy donations and sign-ups for if you would like to volunteer or if you would like to have a trunk. Those sign-up sheets are out in the children's ring, and they are also at the welcome desk. We're going to take candy through Thursday.
Yeah.
If it rains, we do have a backup plan, so this is still all going to go on. There's going to be a family costume contest and a most creative, so bring your kids dressed up, have fun with it. I really think that between our families here and the community, we're hoping for a really good turnout.
Yeah, and I'm already hearing, I've seen people on Facebook posting about who don't go here. So this is an opportunity, again, to be a part of the community and show the community God's love. So even if you don't have a student who's involved in this, like a kid who's that age, come, hang out, buy some pizza, volunteer to run a game for a while, and show the community that we're here for them and that we love them and want to be part of their lives. Kinsman Redeemer as well. We've talked a little bit about that the last few weeks. It's an amazing ministry. And what it is you buy in. There's 15 people in the group right now, and we'd love to see it at 30. And buy-in is every time we need Kinsman Redeemer money, every time there's a tragedy in someone's life, we just re-up the $100. And I will tell you that $100 seems like a lot, but God will provide it. He's always provided it for Mandy and I, and we don't make a ton, but we're like, we're committed to other people. And so it's always been there when we needed it. And once we get the $100, we have it here, and it's just available. And so if someone has an emergency and just a tragic situation in their life, at 11 o'clock on a Wednesday night, all the banks are closed, and they're like, we're not sure what to do. We can show up with between $1,500 and $3,000 and just go, Jesus loves you. He wants to be part of the solution. And a chance to pray with them. And not just go, hey, we'll pray for you, hope things are good, but to provide real solution in people's lives. And that comes through generosity. And so I'd love for you guys to be a part of that. There's a sign up out at the welcome desk, and you can sign up. And Mike will text you, Mike Kirby, when those things arise. And then we just kind of re-up, and we do that $100, and it's there for when people need it, because it's about other people.
That's right. We're excited about it. I want to thank you guys for that. As you may know or may not know, October is Pastor Appreciation Month. So we're going to ask Daniel to come up. Daniel and Tracy. You guys were very generous. So I'm excited to give this to you guys. And I just want to say thank you, right? We'll give them a big round of applause.
Thank you. Yeah. We'll let Daniel do it. Go ahead, man.
Well, first, thank you guys. Really awesome. Thank you. Didn't have to do that, but I appreciate that. Actually, there's an opportunity for you guys in youth ministry. If you are a parent or guardian of a student in our youth ministry or not necessarily in our youth ministry yet. Also, if you have friends or family members who have a child who is 11 to 18 years old or 6th to 12th grade, it's typically how that goes. We're going to have a parent meeting November 6th. That's going to be a Saturday. Don't necessarily want to take all of your Saturday. It's going to be about an hour and 15 minutes. It's going to be from 5:30 to 6:45. It won't be a meal, but we'll have snacks and all of those things. And the reason we do a parent meeting, a few reasons. One, we want to partner with you guys, right? Like we want to make sure that the two biggest influences in your teen's life are on the same page, right? And so a lot of times you guys trust us, you drop your student off and you just kind of, here you go. But we want to make sure we partner with you. And so the reason for that also and why we do this, there's a lot of things that we're going to talk about for the rest of the year that are kind of heavy, okay? And it's cultural topics. It's things that your kid may or may not hear in their education system, all right? And we're going to be truthful about it, and we're going to look at what the Bible says. And so we want to make sure you know what those topics are. And then also, for the first time since COVID, we have a winter retreat this year. Woo! And yeah. And so we want to make sure that we're on the same page with that, show you how to register, how to do all of those things, and that way we can get that ball rolling as well. So I hope you'll check that out.
All right. So Refuge is happening this week, as usual, Monday through Thursday. You guys can take one last week to get your trunks and costumes and stuff ready. But Josh Larson told me you don't need to because they're going to win it. That's what Josh said. So he's super confident. He's super confident. I'm just going to tell you that. But yeah, so you can take some of that time this week to kind of figure out your plan with that. And there are some groups going all out with this, which is awesome. I love it. So that's happening. Giving back in the Great Pillars. If you call the Encounter home, you know that we do this through generosity. So we've got the Great Pillars in the back as you walk out, or you can do it online. If you're a first-time guest with us, we're not looking for money from you. We're just hoping that you experience God this morning. Let me pray for you, and then we'll be done. Guys, thank you for this group. Lord, I thank you for the group that's here in person. Lord, I thank you for the group that's online. God, I just pray that you would continue to speak to us in this area of guardrails in our lives. And Lord, this would not be a series that just, oh yeah, I remember when we did that 2 years ago. That was kind of neat. But Lord, that we would constantly examine our hearts. And God, that we would ask you to search our hearts. And if there's anything in us that is not of you, that you would remove it. God, you would give us wisdom in the area of guardrails in our lives. Lord, I pray for opportunity to speak to people about who you are this week. Lord, whether it be an opportunity through bringing up the children's event this Saturday, or Lord, through a guardrail that we've recently placed, or just through a broken situation. God, that we would have opportunity to speak life into other people. Give us strength and wisdom in your name. Amen. We love